Okay, hello and welcome to this short introduction to using feedback on the Wolfson College Libguide. I'm just going to be really quickly taking you through sort of the ins and outs of using feedback on your academic work, going through things like how to receive it without panicking, which I know is not always self-evident, how to make sense of your feedback as well, and most importantly, how to use it to improve your work going forward. So, what actually is feedback? Well, very simply, it is any information given as an evaluation, sort of what you might expect from a definition of feedback. However, as you can see in this little clip that I've taken from the Oxford English Dictionary, specifically, feedback is intended to inform future decisions. So what is really important about this is that feedback is not a final grade, it is not a death sentence, it is not a label, it is essentially it's your friend. It's something that is there specifically to help you grow. What's more than that is this idea that feedback is a process. So sometimes there's this idea that you receive feedback from your supervisor, a bit like a gift, something that the supervisor is in control of, that they produce and that they give to you, that you can receive wholesale, and then that's the finished product of feedback. Well, I'm here to say that actually it's the opposite of that, and the biggest sort of responsibility of feedback is yours as the student, as the learner, because the most important part of feedback is processing it and using it to reflect upon your work that you've been doing. It may be something to do with the content, it may be something to do with the way that you're working, and using that to correct your actions the next time for the next attempt so that you can continue this process of constantly attempting something, getting the feedback, reflecting on it, and trying again. So, why is feedback so important? Well, to put it crudely, it's essentially what you're paying for here as a student, especially at Cambridge. If you were to not receive any feedback, you could be learning from a textbook, you could be learning from YouTube tutorials. What makes university so specific, especially at somewhere like Cambridge, is the teacher-student relationship, which is something that you will develop over the entire course of your time here, and it is this extremely personalized feedback that is tailored to you as an individual, that supports you and helps you grow over your time here, that you kind of can't get anywhere else. So it is definitely the most unique and important aspect there. It also helps you keep a record of your progress. So without feedback, you don't know where you are, and especially if you keep track of your progress over a long period of time, then not only will it tell you where you are in relationship to your goals, ultimately it'll show you your growth over time. So it'll help you celebrate the wins and it'll help you see how much you're growing over your time as a student. And also something specific about feedback, especially verbal feedback and written feedback from your supervisor, is that it tests your skills as well as your knowledge. So what makes feedback different from correcting, like doing a spell check, for example, is that feedback can be, as I said, extremely tailored to you as an individual, and think about the ways that you're working, as well as the work itself. So, what should you be looking for in your feedback? Well, there are three really simple things that you can specifically go looking for in your feedback to make sure that you know that you're getting the most out of what you've been given. So, the first thing is your ideal level. So, this is going to be all of your goals. This is what you will ideally leave the university with having. So, this could be obviously like a long-term goal. It could be the idea that you would like to finish university with a 2-1, for example, or it might be something much smaller. So it could be that specifically you are working on signposting sentences, or you're working on really confidently using paragraphs. So this is your ideal level that you should be aware of. And then of course you should be aware of your distance from that goal. So that's what you'll find in your current level. So this is how far you are away from your goal. So that's something that should be identified in feedback as well. And then your next steps is something that you then extrapolate from the first two pieces of information. So you know where you'd like to be and you know where you are. And so actually, what are the next steps that you can do right now to make sure that you'll be achieving your goals ultimately in the time that you have allotted to you? So sometimes those next steps will be spelled out in your feedback for you, and sometimes it'll be a process of sort of creating a bit of an action plan, and that's okay as well. But making sure that all three of these things are identified within the feedback can make sure you have a really successful and effective use of your feedback. So you're ready to act on your feedback. So how do you actually identify an area that needs development? Well, once you have multiple pieces of feedback over a long piece of time, that's when tracking your feedback really comes in handy, because at that point you can start to identify recurring themes over the course of your feedbacks. So those things will be the things that you really want to zone in on, and make sure that you are absolutely creating a sort of action plan on how you want to improve on that particular skill. Also, with feedback, I would really highly encourage, if there's anything that you don't understand about the feedback, making sure you clarify that with your supervisor, as that is something that will be passionate about. They will want to help you, and so a question like that will always be welcome to a supervisor. And similarly, there might be some unusual vocab that's used within their feedback, so it might be worth asking them about what they mean about a particular word. Sometimes the words are quite specific in their use in feedback in particular, and we do also have a glossary of terms that are commonly used in feedback and their meanings in the specific context as well, available on our Libguide, so I do recommend going and checking that out. Okay, so you have your idea that needs development, then how are you going to actually improve? What is your action plan? Well, we actually also have an action planning template on our Libguide. So these are just a couple of questions to prompt you to reflect on the resources that you're going to need, the sort of time frame that you're going to do it in, and what are your specific goals as well. So having really clear goals is going to be really key in creating this action plan. Also displaying it while you work. So one of the key ways of implementing feedback is to obviously have your sort of longer log of all of the different things that your supervisor has told you, but then distilling it down, maybe even just to a key word or maybe to a phrase. It could be, in particular, you want to work on grammar. So you might put it on a post-it note and then put that above your laptop and then have that next to you whilst you're working. And so that can be a really good way of just keeping it in the back of your mind to make sure that your next essay is something that focuses on that. Specifically, you can also seek more information about the topic from your supervisor, but you can also go to a lot of different people, including your librarians, that'd be me, and also a skills specialist as well. So there might be someone in your faculty or elsewhere that can specifically help you with your task. This might even be a peer that understands the topic. Also, there's going to be training courses that are available to you, so always keep an eye out for those. And there are so many resources online. If there is a specific topic that you're looking for, definitely look for books, look for podcasts, and look for YouTube videos, and much, much more. You will definitely be able to find something. So now to address the elephant in the room, kind of receiving feedback is hard. Receiving criticism is something that is always going to sting a little bit if it's negative, even if it's constructive, especially if it's harsh, of course. You, as an academic, are always going to identify in some way with your work. So it can be difficult to internalize these comments without feeling some strong emotions towards what's being said. So some of the advice that we give as a library is, first of all, to read it when you're ready. Your first emotional response to your feedback is always going to be the strongest. So make sure if it is using harsh language or if it is producing really strong emotions, you're not going to be able to produce your best sort of response to the feedback when you're in a heightened emotional state. So leave it alone for a little bit, try and do something else and not think about it, and then come back to it when you have enough sort of emotional capacity or spoons to approach the feedback with the most sort of open-mindedness as you can muster. The other thing that I would say is that something that can be really difficult about feedback is that everyone gets it at the same time in your cohort, and especially if this is a numerical grade, oftentimes you don't get that, but sometimes if it is this numerical system, then that can feel slightly hierarchical. But I would always say to be in competition only with your past self and with your personal best. And this way, you are centering this idea of personal growth. And that is the most important part of feedback, and that is what it's for, of course. And then also, if all of these aren't working, a good way of sort of tricking yourself into being able to respond to your feedback in a more open-minded way is to do things that distance yourself from the work. So one of the ways that I like to do it is to pretend that you're, talking about the work of a friend. And so this can be really helpful because, maybe you're having certain thoughts about your work that are quite harsh and quite critical. But if you're thinking about the work as belonging to your friend, then almost naturally your body and your mind wants to be more supportive and more constructive in your sort of wording of your language towards the work. So those could be some really helpful tips and tricks for receiving feedback in a calm way. So the best way to make the most out of your feedback is to always have this idea of your own personal growth at the forefront of your brain. If you believe that your talents are sort of set as they are, then someone criticizing your work is going to really sting because you'll feel as though you can't get any better than that. They're just describing who you are as a person. It feels more like a label. Whereas if you have a growth mindset, and you might have heard that, I mean, it's almost used to a cliche at this point, but this is a really important idea, this idea of believing that you can grow, being really key in the growth process itself. So when you receive feedback in a growth mindset, you won't take it to heart so much. You'll see it more as a tool with which to grow. So key in cultivating a growth mindset is to have really clear, SMART, you probably heard, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, all of these really useful adjectives to describe a good, clear, ambitious goal. Having those really clear goals will always mean that you are focusing on the ways that your feedback can get you to that goal. So it's a tool, it's an instrument. It doesn't affect you because it's something that you're using. Similarly, monitoring feedback over time. I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is so useful to have a clear idea of your progress over time and being able to celebrate your wins. So if you have proof of your growth in the past, you are more likely to believe in your possible growth in the future. So that's really key. And then this last idea, you might have seen the quote going around that is like, if you knew that success would come after 30 failures, how excited would you be to fail? Well, that is a bit of a cliche as well, but there is a load of truth in that statement where it kind of acknowledges not that failure should feel amazing, but that failure and mistakes and doing things wrong is the very mechanism by which we grow. And a lot of the time, success requires failure in order to get better, in order to grow. And so treating mistakes not as like random surprises that you never think would come up, but as actually features of your learning process that you're not only anticipating, but hoping to have lots and lots of as you go along. So thanks very much for watching. Do make sure to get in touch if you have any questions. If you'd like to book a session with me, do go onto the Wolfson website and do so, and explore the Wolfson Libguide page. And I wish you all the best.